My father said, "Come to your sister's wedding or pay your own tuition." He had no idea I graduated 2 years ago with honors from MIT and was pulling in $150,000 a year. This is the story of how I let them live in their delusion until the wedding day. Before we dive in, if you've ever been the invisible child in your family while someone else got all the spotlight, hit that subscribe button. I promise you, by the end of this story, you'll see why sometimes silence is the most powerful weapon. Stick with me until the end. You won't regret it. My name is Maya Chen, and I'm 28 years old. I'm the older daughter in what looks like a perfect Asian American family in California. My father is a successful engineer, my mother a high school teacher, and together they built what everyone called the model immigrant family. But here's what nobody saw. I was always the practice child, the one they figured things out on, the one who didn't quite measure up to the golden standard they'd later perfect with my younger sister Sophia. Growing up, I learned early that love in my family was conditional. It came with a scorecard. Sophia got ballet lessons every Tuesday and Thursday, $200 a month that my parents happily paid. I asked for summer science camp once. My mother sighed and said, "Maya, we need to be practical. Maybe next year." Next year never came. I was 16 when I got my first job at a boba tea shop working weekend shifts. My parents praised me for being so responsible and so mature. What they meant was, "Good, now we don't have to worry about your expenses." By the time I got into MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, one of the best schools in the world, my father's reaction was a brief nod. Good school, expensive though. Then he turned to Sophia, who'd just gotten a call back for a local theater production. "Now that's exciting, our little star." I remember standing in our kitchen holding my acceptance letter, feeling it grow heavy in my hands. That night, I heard my parents talking in their bedroom. My mother said, "At least Maya's scholarship covers most of it." My father replied, "We'll need to save for Sophia's college. She'll probably go somewhere prestigious for performing arts." I was the scholarship kid. Sophia was the investment. Throughout my 4 years at MIT, I sent $500 home every month. I told my parents it was from my part-time job helping with website design. They never asked questions. They just deposited the checks into what my mother called the family fund, which, as I later learned, mostly paid for Sophia's headshots, acting classes, and the lease on her cute apartment near USC. I worked 3 different freelance coding jobs, slept 4 hours a night, and graduated magna cum laude. My graduation was on a Saturday in May. My parents couldn't make it because Sophia had a showcase performance that same weekend in Los Angeles. "You understand, right, Maya?" my mother said on the phone. "This is really important for Sophia's career." I walked across that stage alone. I collected my diploma alone. I took a selfie in my cap and gown and posted it to a private Instagram account my family didn't follow. Then I started my job at one of the top tech companies in Silicon Valley. Here's the thing. I never told them I graduated. When my mother called and asked how school was going, I said fine and changed the subject. When my father made comments about when you finish your degree, I just nodded. I kept sending that $500 every month. I wanted to see something. I wanted to see if they would ever ask about me. Really ask, not just check a box. I wanted to know if they'd notice I'd been working full-time for 2 years while they thought I was still struggling through senior year. They never noticed. And then came Sophia. Beautiful, charming Sophia, who'd stumbled through 3 different majors at USC before landing on media studies. Sophia, who at 25 had finally found her golden ticket, Ethan Morrison. Ethan was the son of a tech CEO, the kind of old money family that summered in the Hamptons and had a wine cellar worth more than most people's houses. He was handsome, wealthy, and completely smitten with my sister. Within 6 months, they were engaged. Within a year, they were planning a wedding that cost more than my entire MIT education. Sophia changed after she met Ethan, or maybe she just became more of what she'd always been. She started introducing me to her new friends as her distant cousin, or worse, not introducing me at all. Once, at a family barbecue where some of Ethan's family friends were visiting, I heard her tell someone, "Oh, Maya? She does tech support or something. Sweet girl, but, not really my scene." Tech support. I was a senior software architect leading projects worth millions of dollars, but to Sophia, I was just less than. The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday. It was thick, cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing. Expensive. Inside, the details were printed in elegant script. Adult ceremony only. I looked at the guest list my mother had forwarded. My cousins were bringing their children. But not me, even though I didn't have kids. There was no +1 option for me either, while everyone else had one. At the bottom of the invitation, in smaller text, formal attire strictly enforced. Sophia had sent me a separate email with a Pinterest board titled Appropriate Wedding Guest Looks, basically a guide on how not to embarrass her. 3 days later, my father called. "Maya, your sister is worried. She needs you at the wedding. You have to be there to support her." I was sitting at my desk reviewing code for a $50 million project. "Dad, I'll check my schedule," I said. His voice changed, got that edge it always had when he was about to lay down the law. "This isn't optional. You're family. If you don't show up, I'm cutting off your tuition support. You can figure out how to pay for your last year yourself." I held the phone away from my ear for a moment. I looked around my apartment, the nice one-bedroom in a safe neighborhood that I paid for entirely myself. I looked at my laptop, at the email from my boss praising my latest project delivery. I looked at my bank account, open on another screen, showing a balance that would have made my father's eyes water. "Okay, Dad," I said quietly. "I'll be there." He exhaled, satisfied. "Good. Your mother and I raised you better than to be selfish. Sophia's happiness comes first right now." I hung up and sat in the silence of my apartment. I could have told him the truth right then. I could have said, "Dad, I graduated 2 years ago. I make more money than you do. I don't need your tuition support because there is no tuition." But I didn't, because I realized something. This wedding was going to be the perfect stage, not for Sophia, for the truth. The next few weeks were a masterclass in family delusion. My mother called with suggestions about what I should wear. "Nothing too flashy, Maya. You don't want to draw attention away from the bride." Sophia sent me a text. "Chi, I'm so glad you're coming. I was worried you'd be difficult about this." Difficult. As if setting boundaries was the same as being problematic. My aunts and uncles weighed in on the family group chat, reminding me how lucky Sophia was, how important this wedding was for our family's image. Someone actually wrote, "This could open doors for all of us." I read every message. I responded with simple, polite replies. "Of course. Can't wait. So happy for Sophia." And then I made a phone call. "James, it's Maya. Remember when you said you owed me a favor for that referral last year? I'm ready to collect." James Park and I had worked together on a major project 6 months earlier. He was a venture capitalist, Korean-American, sharp as hell, and someone who understood the specific dynamics of Asian American family expectations. We'd grabbed coffee a few times, talked shop, became genuine friends. Once, after a few drinks at a work happy hour, I'd vented about my family situation. He'd laughed and said, "If you ever want to crash their worldview, let me know. I live for dramatic entrances." I told him about the wedding, about the seating arrangements I'd heard whispered about, table 47 near the kitchen, about being introduced as the tech support sister, about my father's tuition threat. James listened, and then he started laughing. "Maya, this is perfect. I'm coming to this wedding, and we're going to give your family a reality check they'll never forget." "You don't have to." "I want to. Besides, the groom's father is David Morrison, right? CEO of Morrison Tech Holdings? I've been trying to get a meeting with him for months. This is a win-win." We planned it carefully. James would arrive late during the reception. He'd act like my +1 that I'd forgotten to mention. And he'd be himself, successful, confident, and connected in all the ways that would make my family's heads spin. The wedding day arrived. It was at the Fairmont Grand Del Mar, one of the most expensive venues in Southern California. I drove myself, wearing a navy blue dress that cost more than my family knew I could afford. It was elegant, understated, but clearly expensive if you knew what to look for. I arrived exactly on time, not early enough to help, not late enough to cause drama. My mother saw me first. Her eyes widened slightly at my appearance, but she recovered quickly. "Maya, you made it. Go check in at the guest table." No hug. No, "you look beautiful." Just directions. I found my name card, table 47. I walked through the venue, past table 1 where my parents sat with Sophia's new in-laws, past tables 2 and 3 where immediate family gathered, past tables 4 through 15 where extended family and close friends laughed and took photos. I walked all the way to the back near the service entrance to the kitchen, where table 47 sat almost hidden behind a decorative screen. I sat down next to strangers, a coworker of my father's who I'd met once, a friend of my mother's from church, people who looked confused about why they were seated together. "I think we're the miscellaneous table," the woman next to me joked sadly. I smiled and said nothing. The ceremony was beautiful. Sophia looked stunning in a dress that probably cost $15,000. Ethan looked at her like she hung the moon. And when they said their vows, I felt something unexpected. Not anger, but sadness. Sadness that this moment could have been different. That we could have been sisters who celebrated each other instead of competed for scraps of parental attention. But that's not what our family had built. The reception started. Dinner was served, filet mignon and Chilean sea bass, because Sophia insisted on the best. The best man gave a speech about how lucky Ethan was. Sophia's maid of honor cried about their friendship, and then my father stood up. "I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate my daughter Sophia's special day. She's always been such a light in our lives, smart, talented, kind. Her mother and I are so proud, and we're grateful to the Morrison family for welcoming her." He raised his glass. Everyone cheered. He sat down without mentioning me once. Then Sophia took the microphone. "I want to thank my amazing parents for everything. Mom, Dad, you've always supported my dreams. Ethan, you're my dream come true. And thank you to everyone here who's been part of my journey. My friends, my family, everyone who believed in me." She named her bridesmaids. She named her cousins. She thanked her acting coach, her college roommate, even the woman who did her nails. She never said my name. I watched this from table 47, half hidden behind a decorative palm, and I felt something click into place. This was it. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I pulled out my phone and sent a text. Now would be good. 15 minutes later, during the salad course, I heard a small commotion near the entrance. Heads turned, and then I saw him, James Park, walking through the venue like he owned it. He wore a Tom Ford suit that probably cost $5,000. His presence was magnetic, confident, powerful, completely at ease. He walked straight past the reception desk, past the confused wedding planner, and came directly to table 47. "Maya," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "I am so sorry I'm late." Traffic from the airport was absolutely brutal. I stood up, smiled like I'd been expecting him. "James, you made it! I was starting to worry." We hugged. I saw my mother's head snap around from table 1. I saw Sophia's eyes widen in confusion. James sat down next to me, like table 47 was exactly where he wanted to be. He pulled out an envelope from his jacket. "I brought a small gift for the couple. I hope they don't mind." The envelope was thick. Later, I'd learn it contained a $50,000 check to a charity in their name, the kind of gift that made a statement. Within minutes, I saw David Morrison, Ethan's father, lean over to someone and whisper. Then he stood up and started walking toward our table. The CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech company was crossing the room, heading straight for table 47. This was the moment. This was when everything changed. David Morrison reached our table with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, the kind of smile powerful people use when they're surprised and trying not to show it. "James Park? Is that you? I didn't realize you knew the Chen family." His tone was cordial, but his eyes were calculating, already trying to piece together the connection. James stood, shaking his hand firmly. "David, good to see you. Yes, I know Maya professionally. She's absolutely brilliant." He said it casually, the way you'd mention the weather, but I saw the ripple effect immediately. My mother had gone very still at table 1. Sophia was staring at us, her champagne glass frozen halfway to her lips. "You work together?" David asked, his attention now fully on me. I could see him trying to reconcile the woman at table 47 with someone James Park would know professionally. Actually, James continued, Maya led the architecture on our last major project, $50 million investment. Best decision we ever made. Her technical vision is exceptional. The words hung in the air like a bomb. $50 million, technical vision, led the architecture. I watched my father process this information, his face going through confusion, then disbelief, then something that might have been panic. An older woman at a nearby table pulled out her phone. I knew what she was doing. I'd been watching people Google me all night, ever since James arrived. The wedding planner appeared at David's elbow, flustered. Mr. Morrison, I apologize for the seating confusion. Would you like me to move Ms. Chen to— No need, James said smoothly. We're perfectly comfortable here. Great view of everything. It was a power move, and everyone within earshot understood it. He was choosing to stay at the bad table, which somehow made it the most important table in the room. David nodded slowly, still trying to piece together the puzzle. Well, I hope you both enjoy the evening. James, we should talk sometime. I've been wanting to discuss some potential collaborations. I'd like that, James said. Give my office a call. We'll set something up. As David walked away, I could see the whispers spreading like wildfire. Someone at table 12 leaned over to show their neighbor a phone screen. A woman at table 8 grabbed her husband's arm, whispering urgently. And Sophia. Sophia had gone pale, her carefully applied makeup suddenly looking garish against her shocked expression. She stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over her champagne flute. I saw her say something to Ethan, saw him look confused, and then she was walking toward us. The bride, leaving the head table in the middle of her own reception, weaving between guests to reach table 47. Chi, she said when she reached us, using the Vietnamese term for older sister that she rarely bothered with anymore. Can we talk? Outside? I glanced at James, who gave me a subtle nod. Of course, I said, standing up. Excuse me. I followed Sophia through the French doors onto a private terrace overlooking the golf course. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful. Sophia's carefully styled hair was already coming loose from her updo, stress and panic doing what hours of reception dancing hadn't. Who is that? She asked, her voice tight. Who is James Park? A colleague, I said simply. Someone I work with. You work with venture capitalists? She looked at me like I'd just told her I was secretly an astronaut. But you said you did tech support. You said— I never said that, Sophia. You said that. I just didn't correct you. She stared at me, and I could see her mind racing, trying to remember our conversations, trying to pinpoint where she'd gotten that information. But Dad said you were still in school. He said he was helping with your tuition. Did he? Or did he assume? Did any of you ever actually ask me about my life? Or did you just decide what my life must be like and never bother to verify? Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes were getting shiny with tears, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just a strange, hollow calm. Chi, I don't understand. Why didn't you tell us you were successful? Why did you let us think— Because I wanted to see if you'd ever ask. The words came out quieter than I intended, but they seemed to echo in the evening air. I wanted to see if any of you cared enough about me, about my actual life, not just what I could do for you, to ask a single real question. How are you really doing, Maya? What are you working on? Are you happy? But you never did. Sophia's face crumpled. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were so successful. I didn't. Would it have mattered if I wasn't? I asked, and watched her freeze. Would you have treated me better if I was still struggling, or would that have just confirmed what you already believed, that I was less than you? She didn't answer. Couldn't answer, because we both knew the truth. Your wedding is beautiful, I said, smoothing down my dress. You should get back to it. You don't want people to wonder where the bride is. Chi, please, Enjoy your night, Sophia. You worked hard for this. I walked past her, back into the reception, leaving her standing alone on the terrace in her $15,000 dress. When I returned to table 47, James was in conversation with two other men in expensive suits. He introduced them as fellow VCs, people he'd recognized from the tech world. They were talking shop, and they welcomed me into the conversation like I belonged there, because I did. We discussed market trends, upcoming IPOs, the challenges of scaling architecture for AI applications. It was the kind of conversation I had every day at work, but here, in this context, it was revolutionary. My mother appeared at my elbow. "Maya, can we talk?" I excused myself from the conversation and followed her to a quiet corner near the bar. She looked rattled, her usual composed expression cracked. "Is it true? What that man said about your work?" "James? Yes, it's all true. But you're still in school. Your father sends you money for tuition every—" She stopped, her eyes widening as understanding dawned. "How long?" "I graduated 2 years ago, Mom. Magna cum laude from MIT. I've been working as a senior software architect since then." Her hand went to her mouth. 2 years? You've been— And the money we've been sending. The $500 I send you every month? That's my money. It always has been. I've been contributing to the family fund that's been paying for Sophia's life while you thought you were helping me with tuition that doesn't exist. She looked like I'd slapped her. "Why didn't you tell us?" It was the same question Sophia had asked, and it deserved the same answer. "Because you never asked, Mom. In 2 years, neither you nor Dad ever asked for a transcript, never asked about classes or professors or graduation plans. You just assumed I was struggling along, needing your help, while Sophia was the star. It was easier for you to believe that story." "That's not—" she started, but couldn't finish, because it was fair. It was completely, devastatingly fair. I watched my mother wrestle with the truth, watched her face cycle through emotions, guilt, shame, defensiveness, more guilt. Finally, she said, "We need to talk about this as a family, all of us, after the wedding." "Maybe," I said, "but not tonight. Tonight is Sophia's night, remember? That's what you've been telling me for months." I walked away, back to table 47, where James was waiting with a knowing look. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, and realized I meant it. "I really am." The rest of the reception passed in a blur of uncomfortable encounters. My father tried to approach 3 times, but each time I was conveniently in conversation with someone else. Cousins who'd ignored me all night suddenly wanted to chat. Aunts who'd made passive-aggressive comments about my situation now wanted to know about my career. The family group chat was apparently exploding. James showed me his phone, where someone had added him and people were frantically Googling both of us. Someone found my LinkedIn. The messages started flooding. "MIT? Magna cum laude? Senior software architect? She's been graduated for 2 years?" I watched the messages pile up in the family group chat that someone had screenshotted and sent to James. My uncle. "Maya graduated from MIT 2 years ago? How did we not know this?" My aunt. "She makes how much?" Another cousin. "Wait, so when Dad said she needed help with tuition?" The dots were connecting, and the picture they were forming was not flattering to my family. During the cake cutting, I noticed more people on their phones. Someone had found my professional profile, and it was making the rounds. The woman sitting next to me at table 47, my father's co-worker, leaned over and whispered, "I had no idea you were doing so well. Your father always talked about you like you were still finding your way." There was no malice in her voice, just confusion and a little bit of pity for my parents. My LinkedIn profile told the story my family had never bothered to learn. Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from MIT, graduated with magna cum laude honors 2 years ago. Senior software architect at a Fortune 500 tech company. Led multiple projects valued over $50 million. Skills endorsed by hundreds of colleagues. Recommendations from department heads and C-suite executives. The profile had a professional headshot. Me in a blazer, confident, smiling. It didn't look like the Maya my family knew. It looked like a stranger. An older cousin appeared at our table, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Maya, I just saw your profile. This is incredible. Why didn't you say anything?" The question was becoming a refrain, and I was getting tired of answering it. "Nobody asked," I said simply, and watched her face shift as she realized what that meant. James's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and showed me the screen. A LinkedIn message from David Morrison. Maya, the CEO of your sister's husband's father's company just reached out to me about you. He wants to know if you'd be interested in discussing opportunities at Morrison Tech. I felt a strange laugh bubble up in my throat. Sophia told people I did tech support. Well, James said with a grin, now her father-in-law wants to recruit you. How's that for irony? Sophia saw us looking at the phone. I watched her say something to Ethan, watched him look confused and concerned. This was supposed to be her perfect day, her moment to shine, and instead, everyone was talking about her sister. The sister she'd hidden at table 47. The sister she'd described as unsuccessful and embarrassing. I didn't feel good about it, but I didn't feel bad either. I just felt tired. The reception wound down around 11. Sophia and Ethan made their grand exit through a tunnel of sparklers, off to their honeymoon suite and then to Bali for 2 weeks. As they left, Sophia's eyes found mine across the crowd. She looked like she wanted to say something, but the moment passed and she was gone, swept away in a shower of rose petals and well wishes. James walked me to my car. That was something, he said. You okay? Ask me tomorrow, I replied. Right now, I'm just processing. For what it's worth, you handled that with more grace than I would have. I'm not sure grace is the right word. I needed them to see me, really see me, and now they do. I unlocked my car. Thank you for coming, for doing this. Anytime, he said, and I knew he meant it. And hey, I got a meeting with David Morrison out of it, so really, thank you. I drove home through the quiet streets, my phone buzzing constantly with messages I didn't read. When I got to my apartment, I turned off my phone, took off the expensive dress, and sat on my couch in silence. Tomorrow, I'd deal with the fallout. Tonight, I just needed to breathe. The next morning came too early. I turned on my phone to find 47 unread messages in the family group chat, 15 texts from my mother, 8 missed calls from my father, and a dozen messages from various relatives. I made coffee and started reading, my stomach knotting with each message. My father's texts escalated from confusion to anger to something that might have been panic. Maya, call me immediately. We need to talk about last night. Why didn't you tell us about your graduation? Do you realize how embarrassing this was? And finally, hours later, please, call me. We need to talk. My mother's messages were different, tinged with guilt. Maya, I don't understand why you kept this from us. When did you graduate? We should have been there. I found the photos on your Instagram. Why didn't you invite us? Your father is very upset. Please call. The family group chat was a disaster. My aunts were trying to smooth things over while simultaneously demanding answers. My cousins were divided between those who thought I'd pulled a brilliant power move and those who thought I'd been cruel. Someone had posted a screenshot of my LinkedIn profile. Someone else had found an article about the project I'd led, mentioning me by name as the lead architect. The comments ranged from congratulatory to accusatory. Then I saw Sophia's name pop up in a separate text thread. Chi, can we please talk? Not about last night. About everything. Please. I set down my phone and stared out my apartment window. The sun was bright, indifferent to human drama. I had a choice to make. Engage with this or walk away. Set boundaries or let them bulldoze me like they always had. I picked up my phone and typed a response to my father. I can meet Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Your house? We can talk then. Short, factual, on my terms. I didn't respond to the group chat. I didn't respond to most of the relatives. I sent a brief message to my mother. I'll explain everything on Tuesday. And to Sophia, when you're back from your honeymoon, if you want to talk, I'm willing to listen. So, then I turned on my out-of-office message and spent the weekend hiking, reading, and deliberately not thinking about my family. I'd spent 28 years managing their emotions. They could manage their own for 3 days. Tuesday evening arrived with the weight of inevitability. I drove to my parents' house in Fremont, the same house I'd grown up in, with its neat lawn and the basketball hoop in the driveway that nobody had used in years. My father's car was in the garage. My mother's sedan was parked in its usual spot. The house looked exactly the same as always, but I felt different approaching it. I wasn't the Maya who'd left for MIT 8 years ago. I wasn't even the Maya who'd sat at table 47 4 days ago. I was someone new, someone still figuring out who she wanted to be. My mother opened the door before I could knock. She looked like she hadn't slept well. "Come in, Maya. Your father's in the living room." The house smelled like my childhood, my mother's cooking, the specific brand of cleaning solution she always used, the faint scent of my father's tea. But walking into the living room felt like entering foreign territory. My father sat in his usual chair, but he looked smaller somehow. Older. He didn't stand when I entered, just gestured to the couch. "Sit down, we need to talk." I sat, keeping my posture straight, my face neutral. My mother sat next to my father, her hands twisted in her lap. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. Finally, my father spoke. "Why didn't you tell us you graduated? You never asked." "That's not an answer, Maya. Parents shouldn't have to ask when their child graduates from college. You should have told us." "Should I have?" I kept my voice even. "When would have been a good time? When you were at Sophia's showcase during my graduation weekend? When you called to tell me about Sophia's engagement and forgot to ask how I was doing? When Dad threatened to cut off tuition that didn't exist?" My mother flinched. "We didn't know." "That's the point, Mom. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. It was easier to believe I was struggling, that I needed your help, that I was the problematic child who required management. It fit the story you'd been telling yourselves for years." "That's not fair," my father said, his voice rising. "We've always supported you." "Have you?" I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and turned the screen toward them. "I've sent you $500 every month for 4 years. That's $24,000. I paid for Sophia's acting classes, her headshots, her apartment deposit, all from the family fund that was supposedly for family emergencies. Meanwhile, you paid for her USC tuition, her car, her living expenses. You threw her a $500,000 wedding. What did you do for my graduation?" The silence was deafening. "You weren't there," I continued, my voice cracking slightly. "I walked across that stage at MIT, one of the best schools in the world, and I was completely alone. I took a selfie in my cap and gown and posted it to an Instagram account you don't follow because I knew you wouldn't care. And I was right. You never even noticed I'd graduated." My mother was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "Maya, we should have been there. I'm so sorry. We should have been there." "But you weren't. You were at Sophia's showcase watching her perform in a community theater production that maybe 50 people attended. That was more important to you than my graduation from MIT. My father looked like he'd been punched. "We made a mistake. We should have done better. But you should have told us. You let us think you were still in school. You let us send money." "I never asked for that money, Dad. You assumed I needed it. You assumed I was failing, struggling, barely getting by. And when I sent money home, you took it without question. Did you ever wonder where I got it? Did you ever think, Maya's sending $500 a month, maybe she's doing okay? Or did you just assume it was from some low-paying part-time job and feel good about yourselves for helping me?" He didn't answer. Neither of them did. I wanted to see if you'd ever ask about my actual life, if you'd ever see me as more than just the responsible older sister whose job was to make things easier for Sophia, and you never did. Even at her wedding, you seated me at table 47 near the kitchen with strangers. You didn't include me in the family photos. Sophia gave a speech thanking everyone in her life and never said my name. My mother sobbed openly now. "We failed you. We failed you, and we didn't even know it." "No," I said quietly. "You knew. You just didn't care enough to change." The words hung in the air, harsh and true. My father's face had gone red, whether from shame or anger, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. "So what now?" he asked finally. "You came here to tell us what terrible parents we are? To make us feel guilty?" I came here because you asked me to, because despite everything, you're still my parents and I'm still trying to figure out if there's a relationship worth salvaging. I stood up. But I'm done being invisible. I'm done sacrificing for a family that doesn't see me. If you want a relationship with me, it's going to be on different terms. I'm not the backup child anymore. I'm not the problem to be managed. I'm a successful woman with a good career and a life I've built by myself. You can be part of that life, but only if you can see me as I actually am, not as who you assumed I was. My mother stood too, reaching for me. Maya, please, we want to fix this. Tell us how to fix this. I stepped back, not unkindly, just creating space. I don't know if you can, Mom. I don't know if I want you to. I need time. I need space. I need to figure out who I am without trying to earn your approval. I walked toward the door. My father's voice stopped me. We're proud of you, Maya. We should have said that years ago, but we're saying it now. We're proud of you. I turned back. He was standing now too, looking older and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. I know you are, Dad, but you're proud because I'm successful, because I make 6 figures and work on important projects. Would you be proud if I wasn't? Would you love me if I was actually struggling? He opened his mouth, closed it. Couldn't answer. That's what I thought, I said softly. I'll call you in a few weeks. Maybe we can try again then. I left before they could respond, before the tears building behind my eyes could fall. I got in my car and drove for an hour, no destination, just moving. When I finally stopped, I was at the beach, watching the waves crash against the shore. I called James. How'd it go? He asked. Honestly, I have no idea. It was horrible and necessary, and I think maybe the beginning of something, but I don't know what. Want company? Yeah, I said. Yeah, I do. He showed up 40 minutes later with coffee and those overpriced cookies I loved. We sat on the hood of my car, watching the ocean, not talking much. It was exactly what I needed. Over the next 3 months, things shifted in ways I didn't expect. My parents started going to therapy, couples counseling to deal with their parenting choices. My mother sent me articles about golden child syndrome and scapegoat dynamics with notes like, I'm reading about this. I see it now. I'm sorry. My father sent awkward emails about his therapy homework, trying to understand his part in our family dysfunction. Sophia came back from her honeymoon to find her marriage already strained. Ethan's parents had questions about why she'd misrepresented her family. David Morrison had reached out to me directly on LinkedIn about opportunities at his company, and Sophia had to explain why her tech support sister was being recruited by her father-in-law. Their first major fight as a married couple was about me, about honesty, about the stories we tell ourselves and others. She called me crying. Gee, I've ruined everything. Ethan's parents think I'm a liar. My husband thinks I'm ashamed of my family. And he's right. I am. I'm so ashamed of how I treated you. Sophia, I said carefully, I can't fix your marriage. That's between you and Ethan. But if you're serious about changing, about understanding why you treated me that way, you need to do the work. Therapy, real introspection, not just apologizing because there are consequences now. I know, she whispered. I'm starting therapy next week. I don't know who I am without being the golden child. It's all I've ever been. Then maybe it's time to figure that out, I said, and I meant it. Not for me, for you. I started setting boundaries, monthly family dinners, but on my schedule. I'd arrive on time and leave when I wanted, not when the family decided. Topics that were off limits, comparisons between Sophia and me, requests for money, questions about why I didn't visit more often. The first dinner was excruciating. Everyone walked on eggshells. My father tried to ask about my work and stumbled over technical terms. My mother kept apologizing for things that had happened years ago. Sophia barely spoke, too nervous to say the wrong thing. But by the third dinner, something had shifted. My father asked genuine questions about my latest project and actually listened to the answers. My mother talked about her own work for once, not just everyone else's accomplishments. Sophia shared that she was volunteering at a youth theater program, teaching kids who couldn't afford regular classes. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. James and I started dating officially about 4 months after the wedding. It had been building for a while, the friendship deepening into something more. Our first official date was at a tiny ramen place in San Jose, nothing fancy, just us without the performance. He told me about his own family dynamics, his own struggles with being enough. I told him about the weird grief of mourning a family that never was while trying to build one that could be. "You know what I love about you?" he said over spicy miso. "You didn't need me to save you that night. You'd already saved yourself. I was just the dramatic entrance." "Pretty good dramatic entrance, though," I admitted, and he laughed. Work got even better. I received a promotion to VP of Engineering with a salary of $250,000 plus equity. A tech magazine reached out for an interview about rising stars under 30. The article came out 6 months after Sophia's wedding, and my parents asked for my address to send congratulations. Not to brag to their friends, just to send a card. It was a small thing, but it mattered. Sophia read the article and sent me a text. "I'm reading about this. I see now what I did. I'm sorry, really sorry. Not because you're successful, but because I made you feel invisible even when you weren't." I responded, "Thank you for learning. That means something." We met for coffee a week later, just the two of us. It was awkward at first, both of us unsure how to be sisters without the framework of golden child and scapegoat. But slowly, carefully, we started building something new. She told me about her therapy work, about recognizing the narcissistic tendencies she'd learned from our family system. I told her about my own therapy, about learning to advocate for myself, about the anger I was still processing. "I don't know if we'll ever be close," I said honestly. "I don't know if I can fully trust you again." "I understand," she said. "I'll work to earn it back, however long it takes." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. A year after the wedding, James and I got engaged. It was quiet, personal, just him and me on a hiking trail, nothing elaborate. When we decided to tell my family, I was nervous, but my mother cried happy tears. My father shook James's hand and said, "Take care of each other," which was maybe the most emotionally intelligent thing he'd ever said to me. Sophia hugged me and whispered, "I'm so happy for you, Chi." We planned a small wedding, 20 people, including my parents. Sophia was invited as a guest, not a bridesmaid. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just wasn't ready for that level of intimacy. She understood. My closest friends from work stood up with me. James's sister was his best woman. It was intimate, meaningful, and completely ours. The ceremony was at a small vineyard in Napa. Nothing extravagant, nothing designed to prove anything. Just two people who chose each other, promising to keep choosing each other. My father walked me down the aisle and I saw tears in his eyes. Real emotion, not performance. My mother sat in the front row with a genuine smile. Sophia took photos and didn't make it about herself. At the reception, my father proposed a toast. His hand shook slightly as he raised his glass. "To Maya, we should have celebrated you all along. We should have seen you. We're seeing you now, and we're so grateful you're still letting us be part of your life. To Maya and James, may you always see each other clearly." It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase years of pain. But it was real, and it was enough for now. Later that night, James and I stood on the terrace looking at the stars. "You okay?" he asked, his arm around my waist. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. "I'm really okay. Your family's come a long way." "They have," I agreed. "And so have I." He kissed my temple. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Not because you make 6 figures or led impressive projects, just because of who you are." I thought about the girl who'd walked alone at her MIT graduation, the woman who'd sat at table 47, invisible at her own sister's wedding, the person I'd become in the months since, someone who knew her worth, who could set boundaries, who could hold space for both anger and healing. "My dad threatened to cut my tuition if I didn't go to Sophia's wedding," I said quietly. "He had no idea I'd already graduated, that I was already successful, that I didn't need anything from them." "But you went anyway," James said. "I did. Not because of his threat, because I wanted them to see me, really see me. And finally, they do." Do you forgive them? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'm working on it. Some days are easier than others, but I've learned something important. I don't need their approval to be whole. I don't need them to validate my worth. I'm enough with or without them, and that's the real victory. James pulled me closer. You know what I think? I think you've been enough all along. You just needed to believe it yourself. The stars wheeled overhead, infinite and indifferent. Somewhere in California, my parents were probably still processing the wedding, still working through their guilt and growth. Somewhere, Sophia was building her own life, learning who she was beyond being the golden child. And here I was, standing in my own power, with someone who saw me clearly, choosing a future I'd built with my own hands. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined when I sat at table 47 a year ago. It was better. Because it wasn't about revenge or punishment. It wasn't about proving I was better than them. It was about claiming my own worth, setting boundaries, and discovering that sometimes the best way to win is to stop playing the game altogether. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, remember this. Your worth isn't determined by whether they see you. You define your own value. You write your own story. And sometimes the greatest act of strength isn't fighting for recognition. It's building a life so full, so rich, so completely yours that their approval becomes optional instead of essential. Subscribe if you want more stories about finding yourself and setting boundaries. And remember, sometimes the person who wins isn't the one who yells the loudest. It's the one who stands the firmest in who they are.